In today's video, I'm going to talk about this one creative element that is stopping brands from going from $2, $3, $4, $5, $10,000 a day in sales to $50, $70, $80, $100,000 per day in sales. I have a whole diagram to show you. Very, very informative video. And now before we get into the video, if you are a new viewer, my name is Brando. I work with 7- and 8-figure businesses just like this one over here. Let me just refresh so you know this is real. Just in one day, as of last year, they did, of course, this was a sales period, but it wasn't even during Black Friday. They did over $100,000 in sales in just one single day. And I think they average around $50,000 to $60,000 throughout the year. But of course here it's a bit more inflated. And so we were able to scale a bit more aggressively. The main reason I'm actually showing you this is to show you what type of caliber of clients we're typically used to working with and what data we have access to. It's not necessarily a case study or anything. It's just to show you exactly that. Okay, so let's get into the video. Great, so let's talk about the main difference between a brand that does $3,000 to $10,000 per day in sales versus $100,000 per day in sales. Let's start with this one over here, okay? Which maybe you are familiar with if you're going after and watching this video. So this is typically what happens, whatever, 3K a day, 4K a day. What happens is that mostly we try these types of brands, they copy and paste winning ads, or they typically, in some cases, even steal them. If that is not the case, I mean, you're either not doing a lot of creative, and if you are doing a lot of creative, you're just stealing, okay? Number two, they copy and paste the entire sales process. So if their direct competitors may be doing like a VSL ad or, an ad leveraging a doctor and a VSL, and then there's an advertorial, the offer is the same. Basically, everything is the same. And what ends up happening is that this brand ends up waiting until the other main competitor that is maybe doing 10, 20, 50 times the revenue or the income is launching new ads. So if they don't launch new ads, they're basically waiting and they don't have the framework behind why things are actually working. And so this is a rinse and repeat process. And so this process can get some results, okay? I'm not saying that it cannot. It can in some cases get results, but it's not innovative, and there's a misunderstanding of what actually customers, like the buying motivations of why customers buy in the first place. And so there's no feedback loops, and everything is so centered towards copying and pasting, right? And so on the other side, this 100K per day brand, and once again, we're fortunate enough to have access to data and information to justify whatever I'm saying in this video, is that they start with the avatar customer. We never start, right? The brand never starts by copying and pasting, right? We can still get an inspiration from other brands, but it's always starting from the customer and understanding who they are. Is it the Sally that is 52-year-olds that is trying to lose fat? Or what is the avatar customer? Then we study winning ads plus understand why they work. Okay, winning ads within our own ad account, and of course winning ads of our direct competitors. And then we customize the sales process to resonate deeply with their avatar customer. If we don't customize the sales process, meaning that it's not congruent, where the ad is talking about pain relief and then the landing page is also talking about pain relief, but it also talks about stress and about other angles that are just not relevant to that persona you're targeting, then there's a low level of resonation. And so this is one thing that a 100K per day brand does. Another thing that we do is that we have essentially positive and negative feedback cycles, right? Repetitive. We always try to understand why things are not working, right? Mostly because most of the things we're testing will just not work. It's just how marketing works. Once we understand that, we have feedback loops. We create A/B testing feedback loops to make sure that we increase our hit rate, right? And then we rinse and repeat. Once again, this process is long-term, it's valuable, and it has feedback loops, and it allows the brands to actually optimize and grow over time, right? Over time, we're doing things that are going to improve over time. We can't improve if we're just copying and pasting. This is just the reality of the things. Now, assuming we understand the importance of learning everything about your avatar customer, right? This is the next thing that will allow you to unlock potential to scale, okay, for scale. And it's mastering winning creative with feedback cycles or feedback loops, call them whatever you want. So this is what most marketers do. Most marketers just study winning ads, as I said, and that is great. But to really go ahead of the curve, you must also study why your ads don't work, which is basically around like maybe 95, 90%, 85% of the time. So the majority of the ads are just not gonna work. And so this is typically what happens with most brands. 99% of the brands, they just look at their failed ads, they skip the feedback loop, and they just test a new batch without any reasoning, without questioning their creative, without questioning their script, without comparing any sort of comparison, right? And so this is a problem, right? And this is what actually has really worked well for us. I'm gonna bring you through the entire process, so hopefully you can use the same one. So we look at the failed ads, once again. We understand why they failed and why it didn't work, right? And so how do we do this? Well, we have KPIs that tell us what is going wrong and what is going right, so that we don't have to make crazy assumptions and be like marketing geniuses all of a sudden, right? We don't know. The market will tell us what we know, what we have to know. And so we study different metrics. I'm going to go over one by one very quickly, and also with why it matters and the diagnosis of it, right? So the hook rate, the first 3 to 5 seconds, super, super important. Why it matters? Because it measures how well the first 0 to 3 seconds are, in most cases, of the ad, which is stop scrolling. So I don't need to explain this. The diagnostic is low hook rate equals weak first seconds. This is very simple. Next thing is hold rate. Why it matters? It tracks retention. If you don't know if the retention of your video is healthy, right, how are you going to know that? So diagnosis, sharp drop at 3 to 5 seconds equals weak hook payoff. Drop at 8 to 15 seconds, for example, is just poor transition into the body, right? And so we have another example is steady drop equals decent but not engaging story, right? So all of these KPIs tell us what the problem is within the ad so that we can enter it, understand it, and then analyze it, right? Conversion rate, why it matters, of course, finding proof of performance if all else looks good. And then diagnosis is, of course, a good CTR plus a bad conversion rate. Potentially means that the landing page or the offer is the issue, right? Bad conversion rate or good conversion rate. Bad CTR, meaning that people just don't click on the ads, but good conversion rate on the back end means good messaging but poor delivery, right, on the back end. And so one other one that we use a lot is just the CTR breakdown, all clicks versus link clicks. Why it matters, just very quickly, is because the CTR all includes basically any interactions like the likes, the shares, the comments, whatever. While the CTR link is just isolated. And so this is a way to basically say, okay, if the high CTR, if the all clicks is high, meaning high CTR all, but low CTR link, meaning that people are just clicking a lot on the ad, but they're just clicking not enough on the link. It means that it's entertaining ad, but it doesn't go after the messaging of conversion, right? It just doesn't convert. It's not optimized for direct response marketing, maybe, right? Another one, just quickly, last one, and this we have many more, but this is just to give you a scenario. Engagement rate, likes, comments, shares, percentage. Why does it matter? Because, of course, it matters. I don't need to explain this. It allows it to understand the emotional response and resonance. And diagnosis is high engagement but poor conversion rates equals potentially misleading creative, right? Or off-brand. Or low engagement and poor CTR, click-through rate, equals creative fatigue or weak concept, right? So all of these have messaging. I know that I ranted a lot and I just basically read what I wrote over here. But I took some time to write it for a reason because, just stop through the video and go through this yourself. But these are just really, really important KPIs that allow us to understand why it worked and why it didn't work, okay? For example, any ad that has a hook rate that is like less than 30%, we know that it can be improved, right? An example. Next thing that we do is that we compare the failed ads with winning ads. So this is the best way to understand what components and elements are different compared to the winning ads of your competition, essentially. And so what we do is that we compare the winning ad with the bad ad so that we have a direct example of why the ad worked and why our ad did not work. One way that we dissect winning ads is that I've shown this document many, many times, but this is just one. I've shown this many times, but what we do is that we take a look at the best winning ads of our direct competitors or of our own. We basically dissect it by ad framework, by buying triggers, and by scene breakdown. So we know exactly what happens every 3 to 4 seconds. It's very scientific, it's very nerdy, but it works. And so we kind of also just compare it with our own ads and see, okay, this is maybe why this is not working, right? We try to make assumptions and have feedback loops. And so what ends up happening is that we do have A/B tests that go on to try to find iterations to make these bad ads good ads or better ads. And so what ends up happening overall is that you're in a situation where you start off like this, right, where everything is red. X is basically, it's not working, it's not profitable, it's not scaling, it's just not worth it to run. And then as you go through the feedback groups, right, you go from a 1% hit rate on your ads, right, meaning, what does that mean? It essentially means that to find a winner that can actually scale, you have to test 100 ads, which is not ideal. And as you go through all of these feedback loops, you start hitting rates that are 10, 13, 15, sometimes for some of our clients, we even hit 20% hit rate. So 1 in 5 ads, 1 in 6 ads are scalable. They're taking the majority of the spend as well. And so as you go down through the feedback loops, you're going to notice that your ad hit rate and all these check marks are obviously going to increase over time because we're iterating and understanding why the ads that didn't work did not work. Okay, everybody starts focusing on why the ads, and this is good. I mean, you need to focus and put your time on your, as an example over here, the winning ads, right? Where is it? Where am I? I'm getting lost here. This one over here. You need to understand the winning ads, but you can't just understand why those work. You need to understand why the others one don't work, because it's the majority of the ads, right? I already went through this. And so this is really, really important. How do we track all of this? I've gone through this information in my other videos as well, but just as a reminder, we track everything through our creative testing tracking sheet, which looks something like this. Let me just show you briefly. But this is how it looks. Every single creative test that we put into our ad account, we also put it into this sheet. So everything is so like precise and documented, where there's basically no excuse to not understand why it didn't work. For example, if for test number 3, let's just say this is loser. In fact, it is. Loser, L is basically loser. If this is a loser, we know exactly why perhaps it's a loser, right? We know what the marketing angle is, what the main emotion was, the avatar we're targeting, the hook, the messaging, the copy, the creatives, whatever, and then the spend, the ROAS, the CTR, cost per click, all these things, including hook rate, hold rate. The reason it's blank is because it's a demo, and we actually have even more columns. It's just a demo sheet, but we analyze all of the other columns that I also mentioned, including others. So I would probably need to create a document that is like 50 slides long to show you this, but we are very analytical. Point being is because we have then learnings and notes that we need to take to analyze why it didn't work. One could be, hey, this ad was completely a failure because most people, only 90% of the people just did not watch the entirety of the ad, right? In fact, only the first 3 seconds. And so that 10% hook rate is not enough to find a successful winner to scale. And so one other thing that is very helpful with this kind of like graphical or this Excel sheet, this Google Sheet, is that you can track win rate, right? Of course, with these columns, you can create graphical representations. But once again, I already went through this information in my other videos. If you're not documenting and putting everything into a sheet that is organized and then giving you data back on what is working and what is not, you're basically like, you shouldn't even test, honestly. You're not ready to do an e-commerce business and scale, right? You might find winners that work. You might copy and paste here and there, and that's going to get you somewhere. Maybe it's in some cases, yes. In most cases, no. But if you want to get to that next level, this is the way to do it. And I'm not trying to convince you. It's like I'm just telling you how I've seen things to work over time. Okay. Now, one other thing that I want to show you is that one other thing that's really important is as you collect all this data with these diagrams, right? One important thing that you'll have access to is that you can filter by ROAS and by ad copy and say, okay, this ad copy gave us the 4.9 ROAS, or this ad copy 4 was the poorest ROAS that it gave us. And you can do the same thing with hooks, right? The same thing with scripts, right? The ROAS, the ROAS that was the highest was 4.9 with this specific hook, right? It should say hook, not script. But essentially what you can do is that you can then combine all these winning elements and create your own ad. And of course, why is this doing like this? Let me just go back over here. And so the advantage over here is that instead of just copying the competition and copying and pasting, you're gathering feedback cycles, right? And you understand why things are working and you're gathering data. And over time, if it's out in 1 month, if it's out in 3 months, if it's out in 12 months, maybe in 1 year, you're gonna have all of this data just come at you and you're gonna understand exactly why you're able to scale or why you're maybe struggling with some other ads, right? And so once again, this was just a short one. I don't want to dive any deeper. I just wanted to do a shorter video here, but hopefully you got the main understanding, at least based on my experience, and why ads or some companies are just stuck here. They're not really leveraging their imagination or critical thinking. They're not really giving it a shot compared to companies that scale to like 50, 80, 100K per day, okay, in a single day, like this one, for example, okay? I hope this video was valuable. If you are a brand, and by the way, before I get into the ending of the video, if you want this sheet over here, just get it. There's a link down below. It's completely free. Just give us your email and it's going to be in your inbox immediately. So that is it for this video. If you are a brand doing at least $100,000 a month, ideally a bit more, you can feel free to book in a call if you're interested in exploring the opportunity of working with us as growth partners. Okay, that is it for this video. See you on the call and definitely see you in the next video. Bye.